my boss, he said he thought it looked like the Land of Mordor, so this was his slide that he liked. Well, once we get it torn down, so after that monster machine was out of there, we had it down to this level here, which was another 4 to 6 inches that we had to chip out of the station platforms. And then we can begin to set rail in here at our 14-inch height. And that's what those guys are doing there. Those yellow things are called grade support fixtures, and it holds the rail at the correct gauge until we can pour the concrete around it. And they have little adjustable all threads on them, so you can get the grades and the super elevations correctly. That's our new. I keep hitting that. That's our new edge tile going in, and then this is what it's going to look like here. All the Sound Transit stations will have this yellow tile on the edge to warn you not to go past that line. This is a graphic that shows what the light rail vehicles and the bus are going to look like in the tunnel at the same time. And there's a little video, but it was just killing my machine, so I didn't load the video. But they are going to be able to share it. And the light rail vehicles have drivers, so it's not just an automatic vehicle, so it'll allow them to be in the tunnel at the same time. This is down at the south end of the job, down on this is just coming out of the tunnel under Airport Way. And I included this photo because I wanted you to see the rail, and then we've got a rubber boot around it that completely goes around the rail section. That's what this stuff is here on this spool. And that allows us to capture the current that comes from the 1500 volts DC wire over the top. It comes down, powers the train, and then the ground return has to go through the rail. If you let it go out into the soil, it'll ruin the water pipes and any metal utility and rebar from galvanic action. So you have to be really careful about keeping the straight current in where you can control it, and that's what that rubber boot is for. We call it rail boot. And here's some guys taking a lunch break down there. That's looking across Royal Brome. The stadium station is completed. It's just sitting there. We're hoping nobody will vandalize it, because we're not going to be open until 2009. So there's a bit of a super elevation going in there towards the Royal Brome crossing. Oh, and I like this. This is the demolition company had this hanging on their job trailers. I like that. Meanwhile, back up at the stud tunnel, we're backfilling. So we've built the walls and the roof, and now you can see we're almost back up to the street level up there. So we're dumping in. Boy, these pictures are dark in here. Can you guys see this? These are side dump loaders, and they drive down the street. And is there a way to jack it up there? So we just take a lane on Pine Street, and the side dump trucks come and they dump it into the holes. We've taken off panels in the street at select locations, and they dump, off they go. And these guys are down below. They blow a whistle so they all get out of the way, which is a good idea. And so they start compacting and spreading. So we've slowly filled up our hole. This is what it looks like. This is a pretty recent photograph from last month of the second story room that I was telling you about that's down at this end of the tunnel. And it houses all the systems equipment. The DC generator, or the transformers are up in here. The communications equipment is housed up here. So this will be full of equipment. It runs off of I think it's 26,000 volts is the feed, and then they have all these DC transformers to step it down. So it's a pretty tremendous current load to run these things. This is what it looks like inside the stub tunnel now. Looking back, I'm taking the picture down here at the very end, and I'm looking this way. So you can see we've got the walls and the ceiling. This is just temporary lighting in here. We're still working on getting the permanent lighting, and they're just now this week have started putting rail in the new tunnel. The rail is all complete in the existing bus tunnel. It's all there. So this is our last bit of rail to do. And since we've come up and backfilled in the street, that allows us to start putting utilities in. We're back at utility level. We've already buried the steam line. This is the new water line going in here. And what else? Oh, there's some street paving in the far end of the photograph there. this was 1 week difference between these two. We were waiting for weather. This was during November when it was raining 2 inches every day, and we sat and waited for good weather, and we had it all graded out, and then boom, within 2 or 3 days, we had the street completely paved out. It was very fast once they can get going. And this was just a funny shot that we had for our team, some of our inspectors, and we caught this guy. This is one of the masonry guys. He was fixing that garbage can down in Westlake, and we managed to catch him. And he had his head in there. So we're always constantly goofing around. I do this report every week. These are extracted right out of my weekly report, and so we have a lot of fun with it. The fellow that I work for worked on the first bus tunnel, so he has a pretty good attitude about how these things are going to go. So in concluding, I was going to touch on what I was talking about earlier, and I've really seen this, especially at Sound Transit, and it's happening in other agencies around the state, and especially in Puget Sound area, is that a lot of these projects that 10 years ago would have been run by architects, they would have hired an architect to manage this whole project, are now being run by civil engineering firms. And I've seen it happen. You know, my first sounder project was run by an architect, but essentially the civil engineers were running it because they didn't, you know, they're really good in their building line and what they're doing, but they really don't know how to handle the drainage or how to get a permit from the city to get your storm drain in, or where, you know, what kind of water line is it going to take to get irrigation in here. So we're seeing in the industry that a lot of these jobs are being led by civil engineers now, and that's good news. It's good news for us, and it's also gives a lot more opportunity to try different things, because you're not just going to be doing road design for the rest of your career. I've branched out into areas I had no idea that I would ever be working in. But architects are still they're still doing all the building projects, which is really what they're good at. That's kind of their forte. So I kind of likened it to a jigsaw puzzle, especially with these Sound Transit projects, because there's so many different people working on it, and that the civil engineers really have to be able to see the big picture. And a lot of these people, mechanical engineers, have a very narrow focus. They can't see the puzzle at all. They have their little piece, and it's up to the civil engineer to see how all these people are going to fit together and to get everybody working towards the same thing. And that's really something that civil engineers do well, because I think we are more broad-based than most of the other disciplines. So if you guys had any questions, that's all the slides I had.
When's the tunnel going to open?
The tunnel will be open for buses this September. So I'm looking forward to that, because it's really hard to get around downtown. So at that time, we'll start testing light rail vehicles. The rest of the system isn't done until 2009 is when they're going to open up everything. And it goes now from to the airport. So they've managed to extend it so it goes all the way to the airport. And right now, our job is at the end, at the end of the line. But I was going to show you on this map here where it's going to go. So when I'm off of this, when I'm done with this construction job, I think our office will be working until probably June. I'm going to go back in the office